Welcome to another edition of the Bigger Podcast. Once again, joined by Mason.
Hey,
And on this episode, we're going to talk about something that I think at first glance sounds a little weird and a little trivial. But really, I think this is something every Bigger League team, and honestly probably every team and every group of people deals with. Seating. And what that means and all the things around it. Seating, not seating. With a T.
in the locker room.
So, I mean, honestly, I think this applies also. Probably a lot of this stuff applies if you're like doing a bus trip somewhere or anything too. And I think this applies to everything. But we're focusing on the locker room, obviously.
Yeah.
So kind of my first thought of this is people have particular seats that they like to sit in. And one of the things that I think is kind of funny to see that, especially, for beer league and our league is kind of a bigger league because we play different rinks, is, we move around. So every locker room is not set up the same. But the people that sit in the same relative areas.
Yeah.
No matter what locker room we're in. And I'll just say, just for me, depending on which team I'm on, I have certain places I sit.
Right.
And also I try to depend on how many people are there. But for the team that I captain, because I have a ton of stuff I bring with me. I have tons of stuff. I will admit, I spread out. So there's different kinds of people that do this stuff. There's people that spread out, there's people that take up no room. There's people that are okay standing up to change. We'll get into all those. But I'll just say for myself, I'm one to spread out for that team. So I usually take up a space that is meant for goalies. Generally what I do. So it's usually a space that is, if we're at some of the rinks that we're at have like separate bench areas that are kind of not connected, that are a little bit larger, like almost large enough for two people, but not quite. And I assume that that's a goalie area. I'll take one of those. Some of the places that we play have actual like locker stalls to be in. And there's ones that are obvious goalie stalls because they're larger. And I will usually take one of those. And that's because I have a lot of stuff to spread out. Because I bring a ton of crap.
You do.
For those games. For the other team we play on, I try to not do that. I do tend to just kind of go to these same spots in all the rinks because we've played out the same rinks so many times. But I try to not take up a whole bunch of space because I think I'm very good at going by a corner and taking up a whole corner and a space, and then I'm taking up like a whole corner of the locker room, which I know isn't great. So that's me. That's what I do. How do you see yourself, Mason, of what you do?
Yeah, I've changed a lot over, I've been playing for a little over 10 years. I've changed over 10 years. And recently I picked up on your habit of spreading out. And you know this, so I like sit next to you to give you like a wall for all your stuff. That's been what I've been up to lately. Post COVID though, I like to usually try to sit like closer to the door for airflow. So I didn't get that COVID virus, the China virus or anything. I don't know.
So you wanted to have that come in from the door?
Well, it was supposed to be like airflow is better, right? Like it just pushes the COVID out or any of the germs out before you like breathe it in. So I don't know. It was like an airflow thing, I thought. And that's where you put the puck bag is by the door, so it just made logical sense because I take the pucks out, for everyone to play with. I get out early and stretch, so I usually grab the pucks anyways. So, yeah, and then there's always like the great, and this is kind of like my strategy when I go out to dinner. I'm not very talkative, but I love to active listen to everybody. So I like to sit. Typically, I like to sit in the middle of the table so I could tune into different conversations and sometimes, drop in a sentence here and there. So like a central location in the locker room would be nice so you can kind of listen into everything. Yeah, kind of evolved over the years. I think those are like my top three for sure.
So you're saying I really mess you up because I'm usually in a corner and on a side.
Yeah, I, I don't know. I think we've my brother-in-law plays with us, and he's loud, so it kind of drags me into the conversation. Anyways, we have a couple loud people on our team, so that I still get a good dose, and then you and I catch up for the week typically, um, which is pretty cool. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say you messed me up.
Okay. Well, and I'll say too, one of the differences with, because this goes along with seating, is the order you arrive. Because it's generally the same order for the most part. Like I think there's,
Yeah.
well, I think there's like groups. Like it's not always the exact same order, but I think people arrive kind of in the same clumping of people.
Right.
Like I am super early. Like I've been trying to be better about not going to the rink as early as I used to. Like I
Yeah.
used to be 2 hours before the game at the rink, and most of the time I could get into a locker because they're not ready. They're like ready like an hour ish, maybe an hour. Usually it's a little bit less than an hour before, so I'd be just hanging around the rink. So I've tried to be better about that. I'm usually like 90 minutes before the game guy now, and generally there's like Mason, you're usually like right a little bit after me.
Yeah, I usually
Um,
try to get there an hour early.
yeah, and then depending on the team we're on, there's usually one other person that arrives about that same time as you.
Right.
Uh, so that like I consider like that's a group, and then we have the other group that's I think a little like the under an hour people, like the 45-ish minute group that
Yeah.
comes in. Then you have a group that comes in about 20-ish minutes before games,
Yeah.
which is probably the largest group, and then you have the group of the people that show up like right before.
Right.
So it's and I think that dictates a lot where the people sit as well, because those people that come in at the end, they sometimes get better seats than the people that come in earlier, because like the people that arrive at like the 20-ish minute mark, everything's kind of taken already. Like you're just kind of filling in at that point.
Right. Right.
Whereas a couple minutes before you go out, like you're already out stretching. I'm somehow still like the last person out of the locker room a lot of times.
Yeah.
I don't know how that is. Like I've been there before everybody. Um, and I'm like, I don't know, I get like half dressed and then I just sit there half dressed for I guess an hour before I go out there. And so like the people like they'll take sit where you sit, or some of those people that get a little bit coming a little bit after us are really quick changers. So it's kind of like as soon as you go,
Yeah.
because it's like you or really anybody goes out, then it's like a line of other people like in the next 2-3 minutes, like 4 or 5 other people get up and go. It's like, oh, somebody's leaving. Okay, I can go too,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It amazes me the time that people come in at. Like I know I'm excessively early, not as excessively early as you, but I do like to take it in, like kind of adjust everything, make sure everything's right and it feels good. Um, but then we have people that show up like 5 minutes before the game, and I just have no idea how they even get their equipment on in that amount of time. It's crazy.
That's
I
why
will
say
say,
I love it.
I think it's hilarious. We have been showing up earlier, and I feel like we're starting to make more of our teammates show up earlier. It used to be like me and you and one other person. Now it's like me and you and three, maybe four guys
It is.
sometimes.
It's growing. It definitely is growing. And I think that going back to the idea of where people sit is, especially these people that show up early, do kind of sit in the same spots in the locker room. Like I said, I sit in usually a goalie-ish area if there is one, because I spread out. And I will say, I don't just spread out. I have a lot of, I have lots of things with me that are for the game. It's not like I just have a bunch of crap. I have a lot of stuff with me that's for like, we've talked about it on here. Like I have cameras. I have, I do like a lineup card if we have, a lineup board if we have a decent amount of people so people know their lineup and stuff. I have all that stuff. I have to bring out all my things. I have to, turn in money and lineups and stuff. So I have that stuff ready to go, and I'm marking all that stuff down and making sure it's accurate. which is completely separate from all my hockey gear. So like I kind of have that stuff out, and I like to have that stuff out, taken care of, and put aside.
Right.
And then my hockey stuff, which I don't think I have any more or less hockey gear than most people. I don't think I do. Hopefully not.
I think you have like some more under stuff, maybe, but not like a terrible amount.
Not really. I just have I have like a full like under.
You have like the cap and everything, but
I don't.
you know,
I mean,
like
yes, I do have a little skull cap that I wear. That's what's taking up all the room.
yeah, I mean that's like a whole seat to itself, you know.
Yeah, but I don't know. I do think it's funny that people kind of realize that, because I'm thinking of one of the rinks that we've played at recently for both teams. Like we've had our I think almost all of our playoff games there. I sit in the same seat. It's always the empty seat next to me, and then you sit there. And I think everybody knows this. Like everybody just knows that's how that goes for both teams. That's the seating arrangement. Like the seat between us has like your 14 water bottles or whatever it is that you bring, like all of my extra stupid crap, whatever. Usually lately it's also where I have like the 5 pairs of skates that I've taken home to sharpen every game. Those are there for
manager.
they're there for everybody to pick up. But I feel like everybody just kind of knows, like, oh yeah, those three, that's where they're at. And the other people that arrive early kind of sit near us also.
Yeah.
They usually sit right with us, and it's in the same spot, which is funny, I think, for both teams. They sit usually right across from me right there.
Yeah.
And then people fill in, I think, kind of around those spots.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I kind of forgot a couple of seasons ago, one jackal in our team knew, I swear he knew, but he's kind of an idiot. Um, that's how we would sit, right? And he just managed to beat me to one of the games one day and took my freaking stall. And it pissed me off. And I did move his gear. He like left and I fucking moved his bag. Took my stall back. That's my stall. It's mine.
And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. That's how the seating arrangement works.
Except that guy.
Well, he knew. And I think about this, like on the other team, the team that I do not captain with us, I feel like our what would you call them, the team leaders, because it's the captain and the guy who's, I think, kind of the assistant captain, sit right by the door.
Yeah,
they like always sit right by the door, no matter where we're at. And I've never understood why you take right by the door seats, like right like that, because most of these rinks the doors open up on seats,
right.
So you have to like be real careful of, you don't want to sit behind the door because you're probably gonna get hit by the door. And because people are lugging their bags in and they're not careful, they just knock the door open.
Right.
Or you have your stuff kind of out because you're trying to not be all spread out. So like you have your bag out in front of you, and it's going to then either block the door, or whoever comes in has to like step on your bag.
Right.
Because that's the other thing that I care about, is I don't want to make people have to step on my bag ever. Because I know I hate doing that when I'm leaving. I hate having to like kind of do the little hop around, to get through as people are, have all their stuff, their bags completely wide open, all their stuff on the floor. And
yeah, I feel like for a while there, we had the big square locker, like square shaped locker rooms. I feel like that's less of an issue, but like you're saying, our last half dozen games or more have been in basically a galley locker room with the stalls, which I do love the stalls, but it's a pain in the butt to walk through there. So yeah, I would not, especially those kind of locker rooms, I would not sit by the door. Like you referenced my 14 water bottles. I don't want someone stepping on number 12 and 13 or something and messing up my whole water bottle game. So yeah, it's tricky.
yeah, so I've always thought by the door is, especially in most of these locker rooms. I mean, some of them are fine. Some of them have like even a little hallway when you go in, so it doesn't matter. But I've always thought, like in those kind of locker rooms, the by the door is a terrible place to sit. I always thought that was an off fun. I never got why some people gravitate towards that to want to be right
Yeah.
there. Then in most of the locker rooms we're in, there's the thing of, do you sit by, if there's bathrooms or showers that are in there,
Yeah.
do you sit by those or not?
Everyone fights for that seat. That's a hot seat.
I mean, is it though?
Is
It's a weird. That's the thing, is I don't know. Like, it's. I feel like a lot of people that wind up sitting next to showers don't actually use the showers.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I feel like that's a pretty normal thing, though.
I guess I haven't really noticed, so I don't know. I do know, God, some of the rinks you go into are so wet after the kids take a shower and leave, you know? So that would be one reason why I wouldn't want to sit anywhere near the shower. Like it's already the whole locker room's drenched to begin with, but that is like the wettest spot.
Well, some of these rinks, the shower, like it's just the showers when you come right out to the rink. Like it's right, like, it's just, there's no transition. It's like
Right.
shower floor, and then it's just magically you're in the locker room. Like there's not.
Yeah.
Well, some of them have like a little place, like there's like a little alcove to put your towel in or something like that, to dry
Yeah.
off. But some of them don't have that. And yeah, I don't know. I've never really understood the next to the shower people, like purposely, that do that. Especially for not someone that goes in and takes a shower.
Right.
Yeah, I've also never, because some of the rinks that we are at, not too many, but some of them have like a separate bathroom in the locker room. And it's like right in the locker room. And I never want to be next to the bath, like next to the toilet. Like I never do. Like it's usually not bad, but the problem is all it takes is one person to make it awful.
Yeah. Most of the bathrooms and rinks are just gross, anyways. They're not very clean. I will say those Columbus from the BLPA Bash tournament, those Columbus locker rooms were legit. The bathrooms were relatively clean, and they were in the locker room. They're a decent enough distance away from like where you actually sit on like the bench area in the locker room that it wasn't super gross. Yeah, and those locker rooms were nice. I wish we had those up here in Cleveland.
I think also that's a huge difference of locker rooms that are probably 20 years old versus locker rooms that are, what, 60 years old, 50 years old, that were mostly
Yeah. It's also just like culture, right? Like Columbus has a bigger hockey culture than Cleveland, mostly, because North Olmsted's rink is, I would say, probably newer than 20 years or 50 years, and they have some of the worst locker rooms. They also have one of the better locker rooms, ironically, too. But yeah, it's hit or miss.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's very true. I kind of going on where people choose to sit. One of the things that not so much now, because I kind of have my set places where I sit, that I like to do for sitting is, you're saying you like to be in the middle. I like being able to sit and just see everybody without having to like look around and be, person on the left here doing this, person, I like to kind of have that everybody's in my field of view when I look up, sort of
Yeah.
thing. I really like having that. That's one of the things where I don't like if we're in a rectangular or square locker room, I like being in a corner so I can just kind of see everybody for the most part. Some of the locker rooms are just kind of the very, I don't know how you'd say it, skinny rectangle. I'm just talking about like it's like two sides, like it's, lockers up and down, two sides of the thing. I think people know what I'm talking about. I don't like being in the middle of those because then I feel like everybody's all around me.
Yeah.
And I can't follow what's going on, and I just feel like my head's swinging all the time. Of what's this person saying? What are you guys doing? What's going on here? What's happening there? and I can't keep track of anything.
Yeah, those galley locker rooms really kind of throw me. Uh, and like I said, it's been a while since we've not been in one like that, so I can't even. I don't even remember a time where we had like a regular locker room aside from BLPA.
Yeah, so that's I don't know. So that's something I look for, and especially when we go to like if we go to new places. That's something I try and I like to go to like a corner usually like that, which is usually where goalies sit. Usually they have goalies kind of in like a corner area or something like that because it's easier to do like I'm saying like a short bench that's kind of not really big enough for two people and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah.
what I like to go for. And even in those galley ones, a lot of times they put the goalies, at the end, one of the ends.
Yeah.
So fortunately for me, they're usually not at the end with the door. They're usually at the end away from the door.
Yeah. Right.
So, so it works out. Um, other things I know that people, it's funny because people I think forget about it when we don't play somewhere like over the summer and then we go back and then it gets to be very apparent that people look for when they're going into rooms is especially in those kind of locker rooms that aren't the like locker stalls is looking for things like hooks.
Yeah, I'm a hooker.
Well, because there's a lot of, I think pretty much every locker room normally has hooks where everybody's supposed to be sitting. Like you have some kind of hooks. Yeah. But some of the locker rooms just don't have hooks everywhere. They just don't. And then a lot of times, because kind of I think the theme of this episode is also kids are terrible and ruin everything. Is kids, break the hooks off and stuff.
Yep.
And so then you wind up with that. And it's always funny to me to see people not, like they don't think about it until the first time we've played there, like for the season, and then realize, there's all the hooks here are broken on this side. Crap. Yeah. And a lot of times some of the locker rooms that, you don't have hooks, but you have like a shelf or something. Some of them you have nothing. You got nothing. So, there's no hooks, there's no nothing to put at, your stuff's just on the bench with you, you're sitting on. And it's funny to me at least, to see people like realize that the first time, and then the next time we go back is all those people are very, very aware of where hooks are and hooks aren't.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that because that is a huge criteria for me is I do need a hook. I kind of forgotten about that, honestly. Just like you're saying. And you're describing that moment between me and you where I walked in and I sat down and I looked up, there's no hooks. And you're like, yeah, the kids broke it off. I'm like, these mother effing kids. And I had to find a new spot with a hook. Just on the other side of you, and to keep it the same.
Because I don't care about hooks. I don't. Let me take a quick moment to invite you to head over to thebeerleaguer.com, where you can check out previous podcast episodes, keep up with all the goofy and sometimes informative social media posts, and contact the show. There's an easy-to-use contact form, a button to leave voicemails, and a newsletter sign-up. All of us here would love to hear your thoughts on this episode or ideas for future ones. Now back to the show. They're handy, but I whatever. I don't really have. I have stuff that I don't need to hang up. It's fine. Yeah. I just finally started using the little shelves that we sometimes get.
I do love a shelf.
Like this is the
hooks are more important though.
This is the first year I've actually used those. I think it's the first year I've also started to use hooks. Like usually I'll hang up something, but I don't know if you've noticed this year because we've been in the rooms that have the actual little locker stalls, is I'm hanging up everything on the hooks now.
Yeah.
And I've got all kinds of stuff hung up.
Next year, nameplates, Roz. You can do it.
Go in before everybody. I'll just set up everybody's nameplate where they're sitting. I'm there early enough, and I'm like the last one to leave too, so it's fine.
You're already doing our states.
Nameplates down.
It's only a matter of time.
That's true. That's true. I assume next year I'm just gonna be doing people's laundry.
That's the thing.
That's coming next year.
You take the skates, you take the jerseys, you take the socks, And we come in the next game, we got our nameplates up there with our jerseys and our socks and our freshly sharpened skates. And then you really want to get crazy, start taking gloves and you start drying
I just figure I'm having
gloves.
everybody's laundry bag of stuff, and I'm gonna have like one of those big, like cloth laundry carts. I was gonna bring that in with me for every game, put it in the center of the room. Everybody throws their stuff in there. You know, I'll have a bunch of. I'll make one of those glove dryers that you see at the rinks that have like all the PVC pipe sticking out of it. I'll have one of those. I'll also have that sitting in the back of my truck and have it running when I'm driving home.
Rouse, my gloves aren't dry.
I joke, but I could see this happening. If I allowed it to, I think it would happen. I really do. I think people would go for it if I joked about it to them. All right. So what other tendencies do you see from people as from where they sit or what they avoid too? Because there's people I think that don't sit in a particular spot, but definitely avoid certain spots.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, ironically, we haven't talked about superstition. Um, I'm sure there people's superstitions kind of drive this, and I'm a pretty superstitious person. I like to do a lot of the same things, but my seat doesn't bother me. Um, I can't think of anything other than like kind of like I mentioned. If there's a puddle somewhere, someone's probably not going to sit there right away. I'll leave that for one of the later guys. Um, Maybe behind a door. I know I've sat behind a door. Usually it's not quite as bad as you think, but it depends on the door. Like the galley, sitting behind a door in a galley locker room is awful. You're getting whacked with the door all the time.
Yep.
Oh, by the trash can sometimes. It's really obnoxious. I could see people avoiding that because sometimes there's not enough room to put the trash can in the room. And you're getting tape flung at you. That would be annoying.
I've had
Um,
that. I definitely
that,
have had that.
that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
I think that's all I can think of at the moment.
One of the things that I always find funny and I never get is the people that get there pretty late and everyone's kind of established and has their areas and they're getting changed. And you have the people that are just like, they come in and just like, I'm just sitting somewhere. Hey, there's like 2 inches of space here next to you. I'm just sitting here. That's fine. And they just
Yeah.
plop down versus the people that come in at that same point are just like, oh, I don't see like a very large area for me. And I don't want to ask anybody to move. So I'll stand in the middle of the room and change.
Right.
Because there are people that do that and they just will stand there and start changing. And then as people file out, they'll take somebody's spot and like finish getting dressed. I've never understood that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like I kind of get it. I have undressed in the middle of the room. I like to let everyone else sit down. That's when I sit on the beer bucket. Just sit on a beer bucket and do undressed. Good show for everyone.
But there's usually enough room. It's generally a thing of either I just have to pick somewhere and say I'm sitting here or get people to move. Because usually at that point, most of the places we play the locker rooms aren't so small that there's not room. Like it could be, you're elbow to elbow with people in some of
Yeah.
them, but it's usually not so bad that like you can't fit everybody. But it's usually a thing of like, hey, can you move a little bit to your right? And you move a little bit to your left so I can have a little bit of space in between. Yeah, and most people are pretty good about it. Or somebody will say, oh, hey, I'm just getting ready to leave or
Right.
something like that. So I've never understood the people that don't even try and are just like, oh, well, I don't see any spot immediately. I'll just stand here and change.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those people would sit. Everyone knows I go out early, so they'd sit in my seat. That's how I imagine it happens when I leave. They're like, "Oh, Mason's gonna sit there."
Well, it is fun. We do have a guy on one of the teams that he just knows to take your seat. Like
Yeah.
if there's not room, he just knows like, oh, well, I'll start getting because he's a late arriver, and he's like, okay, well, I'll like get some of my stuff out of my bag because I know Mason's going to be leaving in like 2 minutes, and he almost every time sits where you're sitting, just like takes over your spot.
Yep.
So I think people do know that. I don't know. I think it is funny with that too of people knowing everybody's routine. And I think you very quickly get to, who gets, who gets there early, who gets there late. You know how quickly people get out and don't get out.
Yep.
It's whenever we have new people, it's always the funny thing of getting nervous. Like, oh man, it's 15 minutes before the game and they're not here. And then you find out, oh, they're one of these people that shows up 5 minutes before the game and somehow changes in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because there are those guys that do that. And and everybody knows that. You all kind of learn everybody's routine of things, of how quickly they go and when they go out and what order they go out in, and it's one of those weird things that you learn from playing beer league, where you learn a lot of odd, and not that they're odd habits, but odd things that people do like that. Like we know from the two teams, like the teams we're on, we know who changes quickly and who doesn't. Like we can tell you for sure, like, oh yeah, here's the 4 people on this team and 3 people on this team that all change super fast, like lightning fast. Versus the people that take forever. Same kind of thing of like the people that take super quick showers versus the people that don't. Yeah, I don't know. That's one of the funny things to me that you kind of inadvertently learn about people, just spending like an odd amount of time with them like that, and not a like work setting kind of thing that you learn like a lot of these habits that they have. It's things that I believe from talking to other people and talking to a lot of people's families. It's one of those odd things that's specific to like sports in general, with people where you share a locker room and stuff, but things where like people's families don't even realize that stuff or don't notice that stuff about them. Well, because they don't. Like, how would people necessarily know like how quickly you get dressed? They not necessarily.
Yeah. Unless you play with that person, your partner or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But I can tell you relatively how quickly everybody on the team, can get dressed,
right.
undressed and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, that's one of the oddball things I think that you pick up with people, and helps, create the intimacy amongst teammates.
Jakety.
I just best way to put it.
Watch each other's change. It's getting freaking crazy in here.
Well, I mean, you do who showers and doesn't shower after games, and
no,
that kind of stuff. How quickly people get changed. You find out weird stuff, and it's not stuff you're asking for, or trying to show off. It's just habits that people have with these things that you pick up.
Right.
I will say another thing that I think is pretty noticeable, and I don't know, some of it's surprising, some of it's not, is there are people on teams. We've had people on our teams that nobody wants to sit next to.
Yep.
Or more importantly, don't want to sit across from. You don't want to have to like look at them all the time. So that's definitely a thing for the order you come in, because you don't want to be doing that. I will say there was someone that we used to play with that would always sit across from me. I don't know why. And so I would make it a point, because he would just sit there, and like, he's one of these people that would sit there for a while and not change or anything, just be kind of sitting there hanging out. And so I'd make it a point to just strip down to like, just like whatever, like leggings or whatever I'm wearing, and just sit there the whole time and just look at him. while he was there in the locker room. And this lasted for most of a season before he finally just went, okay, I can't, like, he was like realizing I was doing it on purpose and like just had to move. So he would never sit across from me. And then if he came in, if he was in there first and for some reason and I came in there, he would move. He would even move all of his stuff just to not be like within direct eyesight of me from that. So that I definitely did that to somebody. Well, there's people that you don't like. There is that the order of stuff people come in, and I think you see people trying to get to games, a little bit earlier, even to avoid having to like, oh, I know when this guy gets here, I don't want to sit next to him, so I want to get there. Get there before them so that you don't have to sit next to them, but you don't want to get there right before them and pick somewhere, and then they can still sit next to you. Right. So there's that game of it they have to play, and then also one of the things that I find interesting is people don't necessarily sit next to who I think are like their better friends on the teams. Like I would think not know, like if I didn't know from seeing this, I would think, cause it's, I think every team has this. You have people that are like, kind of a little cliquish with things. And it's usually like, hey, I brought in my buddy to come play and stuff like that. And people sit next to each other. Like you and me, we sit next to each other all the time there, when we play,
right?
For both teams. And there is people though that like never sit next to their buddies. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. And I have noticed that.
I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a thing of people like different spots or they just don't want to sit next to them. They want to sit with other people and be around other people or what? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if that harkens back to superstition type things. Those people have usually played together longer. So maybe they've had a string of games where they both played bad because they sat next to each other. I don't know. You never really know with hockey players, right?
I guess. Yeah, I guess that could be it, I suppose. I don't know. I've never thought me playing bad had to do with my proximity of sitting like next to you or sitting, somewhere else. That was like the last thing I would think it is. Maybe you think that.
Good. Use that survivor bias.
Okay. Well, if I ever play really good, then I'll consider this. Then that'll be something I'll think about. I'll keep that in the back of my head when I have that good game.
Where do you stand on the random folding chair that's sometimes in the locker room?
I love the random folding chair in the locker room. And I like that those are usually in the very large locker rooms that don't need extra seating.
Yes.
I like that those are the ones that have them. And if I get a chance to, if I have time and there's a folding chair in there, I'm thinking of one locker room in particular that has this. I will set up the folding chairs either in the shower or facing the shower. So that's a little thing. If you ever notice that when you come in, if you notice that that's the case, that's from me.
For you to sit in?
No, that's what I do. I set them up there just to see if anybody notices or anybody says anything. And,
It's funny. I have noticed that. And I just kind of assumed that's how it was left, probably by the children before us.
Nope, it's me. That's me doing that. That's me setting it up there. And I know at least once someone came in and used the folding chair and just left it there, and it was sitting facing the shower. And they just used it, and they were looking at and just to paint a picture for everybody, this is a pretty large room that's a big square. Everybody fits in it, no problem. Plenty of room for, a large adult team, which is rare. And the showers, there's just like a hole in the wall that you walk through. That's the showers. Like there's not a little hallway. It's not any place separate. It's just right there. Yep. And there's like continuous benches that go around both sides that go all the way around both sides, except for obviously that opening for the showers and where the door to come in the locker room is. So the chair was set up kind of where the benches stop for the opening of the shower, and it was just facing the shower, but kind of in line. And somebody came in, they were the last one in, and that's where they sat instead of trying to, find a place, which there's plenty of room. There's always plenty of room in this locker room because it's huge. Instead of doing that or just having somebody slide over or whatever, they took that seat and just sat there and changed, didn't move the chair, and was facing the shower the whole time. And then after the game, they sat down and they were changing while people were coming and going from the shower.
It's a great spot. Front row seats.
But no, I love the random folding chairs. I always think that that's a fun. I mean, honestly, I wish more locker rooms had those.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be good for the goalie, honestly, because then they're not constrained by a bench. They can kind of put their pads on and spread out around the chair. I don't know.
Yeah.
As a non-goalie, that would be my choice as a goalie.
Well, also, I think it's the locker rooms we play at are either small or they're really large. There's usually nothing in the middle.
Right.
Like there's a large amount of space right in the middle of the locker room that doesn't get used. It's like, okay, so we put the garbage bin there, we put the beer bucket there, and then nothing's within 3 feet of those. Whereas like if you have a folding chair, there's plenty of room for a folding chair right there for somebody to have a ton of room, whereas I don't know why there aren't more of those in those kind of rooms, because I feel like the folding chairs do wind up in the rooms that it's not very useful for.
Right.
Because it's like there's not room for it. There's not room for somebody to. I know it's not just for adults. I know it's probably there for like kids and like that the coach sits there or something and he's like in the middle of the room or whatever. But like, man, these rooms, there's not room on the floor.
Yeah.
When you have 12 adults with their bags and everything, there's there's just not. Yeah. And people are real bad about having their bags spread out everywhere and
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think of the random folding chair?
Like I said, I think it'd be good for a goalie. I've sat in the random folding chair. I'd move it away from the shower. It is weird because like it's angled back, so it's kind of weird to put your gear on in a chair though. So that would be the reason I would avoid sitting in the random folding chairs, because like you're just angled funny. It's kind of weird to tie your skates and put everything on. So yeah,
I'm kind of leaning
neutral
back while I
on
tie
the
your
folding chair.
skates.
No, but my like butt's like angled back. It's hard to explain. I don't like it.
Okay. And maybe people should start bringing their own folding chairs.
BYOC, bring your own chair.
Well, they have those. They're not folding chairs, but they're like those little stools. We've seen those. Like I think they're like camping stools that fold up into a tiny little round thing that's like a couple of inches tall, and like you pull it out, and it kind of like accordions out into a full size stool.
Yeah,
that would work really
my
well.
My wife has a cart that was for her books that has like a built-in stool. Maybe we're talking about untapped market potential. We build a wheel bag with its own bench. Sit on the bench.
Oh man,
with your bag.
I would like that. I would totally rock that. Especially if it had like little containers I could pull out of the bag, like you have for traveling, like your DOP kit. So you have like little shelves. I'm just thinking of myself pulling behind this giant cart that has a, I pull it in the locker room and I sit down right in the middle of the room. I have my own little seat. Open the bag. I pull out I have like 2 shelving units that come out of it that have all my stuff and all my random crap, and it has my jerseys hanging up in there, and I would totally do that. That'd be amazing. It'd be so great. Be right in the middle of the room in everybody's way. I would love that. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. You should get on that.
Start writing up some prototypes, some wireframes.
One of the other things that I wanted to go back to that you touched on is superstitions. And in my vast research of looking at looking this stuff up online, which consisted of looking at like Reddit and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Because people don't talk about locker room seating usually too much.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is reoccurring, and it's always a reoccurring thing I see for a lot of just hockey stuff in general, is people being superstitious about everything.
Yep.
And I don't see that nearly as much as I think it's made out to be. And I definitely don't ever see that with seating. And I don't know that we would necessarily know it. But do you know anybody that has any superstitions about where they sit? Or who they sit near or around or not near? And like actual superstitions, not like, hey, I just want to sit next to this person or I don't want to sit next to this person.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like part of a superstition is talk about it. At least that's my opinion. So I feel like if someone did have the superstition about where they sit, they wouldn't talk about it. But I don't know. Do you know anybody? You said you didn't know anybody, right?
No, I don't know anybody. And that's one of those, like I said, it's one of those things I see all the time of people talking about, oh, hockey players have superstitions about, literally anything you look for.
Right.
And they'll say they have superstitions about it, because it's, you look up anything like, hey, I'm looking up, what elbow pads to buy. And you'll see like people, whatever, doing things. Then you'll be like, oh, hockey players are super, crazy superstitious about their elbow pads. And tons of players don't want pads that have, the color yellow on them. Or there's a ton that don't want to have any Velcro on them. And I'm like that, really? Like, I've never heard of anything like that. And are those really like things that are superstitions that people have? Or
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I've over the years of meeting mostly other beer league players, I don't think they're nearly as superstitious as people think they are. I think they're oddball people that have weird likes and tastes about things and stuff like that. But people take that as being superstitious.
Yeah. I also wonder the better you are, the more superstitious you are. Like we're not very good.
Was that the problems? I don't have enough. I don't have enough stitions to be a good player.
I'm not saying they're correlated. I'm just saying I wonder if you're a better hockey player if you have more superstitions. We're not talking
Sounds
about
like you are saying
global warming here.
Sounds like you are saying it's very correlated. All right, so I need to make up some more stitions to have for game day. Okay, I need to really think about this, and I gotta get some good ones. I don't know what I'm gonna come up with, but next time you see me, I'm gonna doing some really weird stuff before the game, and it's all because of you. So
all right. I look forward to seeing what they are.
Just know that. See, I don't know what it's gonna be. I'll be online searching for weird superstitions. Let's see. Sure, I'm sure I'll get some great results to find. Give me some really good ideas.
You're gonna have a weird diet.
I already have a weird diet. What are you talking about?
It's gonna be weirder.
80% of my food comes from a gas station. I don't know how much weirder it can get.
I can't believe you'd be so derogatory to Sheets right now.
Well, they are a gas station. It's not, it's not being mean to them. It's what they are. Just because they serve, some of the best cuisine you can get doesn't mean they don't also sell petrol.
Well, Sheets running done.
That's as much as they're going to get from me on this podcast until they sponsor us. That's who I'm shooting for. Not a like hockey brand or anything. I'm shooting for Sheets to sponsor us.
Not Bauer, just Sheets.
Yeah,
Sheets.
Like who cares if you can get get codes to get % off on your next stick purchase? Wouldn't you rather get a free order of Matzo sticks? Yeah, you would. That's a way better deal. All right, I think that means things have gone off the rail. If I'm talking about Sheets, if I could do that all night.
Yeah, my internet's dropping like crazy.
All right. All right. Well, once again, Mason, thank you for joining the Beer Leaguer podcast.
Yeah, love it.
And I would love to hear from people out there, what are some like seating and kind of the locker room rituals of stuff like that maybe you do, you see other people do, that you've heard that, or think are kind of goofy. I'm sure there are goofy ones out there that people have. I'm sure people have seen some weird stuff, and I'd love to hear about it. I would love to do a follow-up episode on this in the future with people's stories on these things. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
So thanks a lot, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.